All right, hey everybody. Welcome to another live stitch out with Anita Good Design and of course myself, Brian. See a lot of you are in the chat already. We have Lauren behind the scenes replying to any comments, answering questions in the chat as well. So how's everybody doing today? I can't hear you. Does the audio seem to be coming through okay? And let us know in the chat if you're having any issues hearing us or anything like that. But welcome to another live stitch out. And today, I'm excited to bring you a design from one of our workshop curriculums, Holiday Extravaganza. Now, we did do a Premium Plus with this, but we also did the workshop curriculum, which is typically $99 on our website. Right now through the end of the day, right, Lauren? Yep, through 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time today, October 26th.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
The Holiday Extravaganza.
Until the end of the month.
Until the end of the month, I apologize. Yeah, not the flash sale. Sorry, so this workshop curriculum is on sale for $34.95, typically $99 until the end of the month, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Halloween. So you can go ahead and get that if you watch this video a little later on and you decide that you'd also like to check this out. We will have a link to it posted below. So feel free to click that to take advantage of this special because it has a lot of really fun designs and techniques in it. Everything from tissue box covers that you see here, which I always used to joke when I taught classes and this stuff came out. You know, my mom used to make every Christmas special by decorating the whole house, and she would always have a huge porcelain house village on top of the grand piano in the living room. And I always joked, you know, you can make a tissue box village instead. That way, if anybody's having a bad Christmas morning because they didn't get what they wanted, they can just go ahead and cry themselves back to sleep. But they've also got the ornaments in there as well, these lace ornaments that wrap, done on water soluble. We have gift card holders, which are always nice, zipper bags, and more, all in this workshop curriculum. It's a great one, but of course today, what we're going to be doing, as all of you know, is going to be this gingerbread man garland. Now, there's several designs in the garland section, not just the actual gingerbread man himself. And we're basically going to show you how to do this, and we're going to be using a couple techniques, which is really just basic embroidery on the machine, applique, and we're going to make it freestanding. Now, when we say freestanding, that means we're going to be using either water-soluble stabilizer, like what's listed in the materials list on the first page, or I'm going to be using a tearaway. So it's really your preference. The little lace handles that are made on the side of the arms, water-soluble might be a little bit easier to get those out without really having to pry at your design there, but tearaway, just as easy. So it's really just up to you what you may have laying around or what you might like. So we're going to go ahead and get started here, and then I'll start getting into some other tips and tricks as we go along. So I'm going to get this loaded. Excuse me. As I'm getting it loaded, Lauren, should I go ahead and give out a prize? You think we have enough people? Right, might as well start off with the prize. So I'm going to give a $20 gift card to be used on our website for any of our digital standard releases. And that gift card will go to the person that we pick. And all you have to do is type Garland in the comments. Garland in the comments. And Lauren will pick somebody here in just a few. It's all on her, so don't blame me. She likes that. All right. So what we're going to be using as we do this, if you've attended any of my live classes, you know I always like to reiterate that we're not only going to be using the pictures from the actual steps, but also the number steps together. So unless you're a seasoned veteran who doesn't even need to look at instructions because you can read the digitizing screens that pop up for each sequence, I would recommend using the picture steps and the number steps in tandem with one another as you go along. So as you can see in the picture steps, with step A, it's just telling us to hoop basically our stabilizer in the directions it's water soluble. Again, I'm using tearaway here in class. And then we're going to run our placement stitch. So I'll go ahead and get that running. And as we're doing this, just remember that you can go back and watch this later. You don't have to feel the need to keep up with me. This will be on our YouTube page permanently. Likewise, since you're on our YouTube page, if you haven't already, please subscribe. And then once you subscribe, there'll be a little bell icon. When you click that, you'll get notified anytime we come out with a new video. And make sure you also like and comment below. The more likes and comments we get, the more that it helps spread the word of Anita Good Design, and more people get to join our community to share our passion and hobbies that we love. Lauren, do we have a name picked?
We do.
What's that first prize winner?
It is Miss Jan Lanfear.
Jan Lanfear. You are the first winner of this live stitch out.
Sorry, Joe Lanfear.
Joe Lanfear. That was Lauren's fault. Congratulations, Joe. We'll get that $20 gift card out to you. Just go ahead and send us an email to customerexperience@anita-gooddesign.com and let us know you were the winner. We'll send that gift card on out. We are tracking who the winners are, though, so you can't just email us and say you're a winner. It's got to be Joe, or Jan, as Lauren likes to say. So as you can see here, I've stitched out the first step, which is a placement stitch. Now, those of you who might be watching and are new to Anita Good Design, we take a paint-by-numbers approach to our designs. So it's almost never the case that you're going to put any fabric down in the hoop or any batting or whatever the actual material might be without knowing where to put it with utilization of our placement stitches. So we always run a placement stitch first. Now I not only know where to put my fabric, turn it the right side around, but I also know exactly where to put it in the hoop. Saves a lot of time and headache. So you can see here we've done B in our picture steps. I also see on my machine's interface that I'm on step 2, which would be the tack down stitch for the front fabric. So the pictures are telling me to go ahead and take the fabric that we've pre-prepped. We also put a fusible on the back side here just to give it a little added weight, but as you can see from a lot of these other ones that we've stitched out, you know, you can use lame, you can use standard 60/40 cotton with print, whatever you like. Even this decorated one with some lace on it as well.
With cotton behind it.
With
It's layered, so it's cotton and then lace on top.
thank you. Yeah, but it's layered with cotton and lace on top is what Lauren was telling me for this guy. I don't know how well we can see it in the pictures. But either way, point being is there's a lot of different fabrics you can choose to use. So we're going to go ahead and put down that front fabric, making sure that I'm double checking all the steps, even though I've done these things 1,000 times. Sometimes when you do things too much, you don't pay attention, and then you still mess up. So I've gone ahead and run that step. Now I'm going to be using a contrasting thread to do this tack down stitch just so you're able to see it. But I typically would recommend, if I'm using a red fabric, to tack it down with a coordinating thread color. That way that doesn't peek through the finishing satin stitches. So going to run step 2 here, which will be the tack down stitch for it. Now you can tape your fabric down if you like. Me personally, I'm just running straight through it. Pretty confident in this machine's ability. The good thing about this garland is, you know, it stitches the actual loops into the stabilizer itself, not on the actual fabric, so that you're able to tie the ribbons through, and really you're just doing in one hooping a single piece of garland that's ready to tie up with ribbon. So you can actually, with a big enough hoop, put a lot of them in there. One thing I would recommend, because I get this question all the time at events, is if you're going to add multiple files to one hooping, unless you really understand digitizing sequences, don't use the color sort options on some machines that have that availability, because it can actually mess up the sequence of when things stitch out. So we've gone ahead and tacked it down. And then looking back at my directions here, I can see that tack down front fabric, step 3 is my white satin stitch. So what this is going to do, and I can see by the pictures, is I'm waiting to trim, which is also in the actual step D. You can see we haven't trimmed it yet. There's a reason for this I'll explain in just a moment. So we'll go ahead and hoop that guy back in, and I'll get my next thread prepped. The reason we're not going to trim it yet, this is just good habit, is because we're not going to be doing that finish satin stitch until we put some fabric on the back of the hoop. But we are going to run our embroidery on the front so that when we put that fabric on the back of the hoop, it actually doesn't show through. So on the back side, you'll see you have the front of the garland, back of the garland, but we're not seeing all those lock stitches and bobbin stitching on the back because we made it presentable with the back fabric. So we wait to trim the top so that any embroidery done inside doesn't actually draw the fabric inside the tack down stitch. So it's just a good habit to have, but I also know that the amount of stitches for this inner embroidery really isn't enough to draw this in. It's just that you'll get to the point to where you can recognize that. But if you're new, I just recommend to build that habit of waiting to trim if your inside embroidery is done before your outside tacking stitch, or excuse me, your outside finishing stitch in this case, which would be the actual satin stitch. Now, as we're going through some other tips as it does this satin stitch, which I always like to mention is notions. I like using the double curved applique scissors. You guys hear me talk about it all the time on videos or in class events, but no matter how much I say it, there's always somebody new or maybe need a refresher. Curved tip, whether it's snips or just smaller applique scissors, is going to let you get more intricate cuts without actually the tip poking in through the tack down stitch and cutting fabric where you don't need to. It allows me to really get those curves nicely. The curve on the handle keeps me from punching my hoop as I'm trying to actually cut. So these are a favorite of mine, but everybody has their own preference. Some of our team members only like using snips, but I tend to punch the hoop or punch the actual stabilizer out of the hoop sometimes. So I like the double curve myself. Now on to something else while it's doing the satin stitch is, of course, our flash sale, which in this case is the Anita's Express needlepoint snowflake trivets. We'll also have that pinned down below, so take a look. But this is on sale for 50% off through tonight, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, through Sunday. Was anything expiring tonight?
No.
Just my job. Yeah. So I'm kidding, maybe. But this is going through Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, so you can even tell your friends if they don't watch this until the weekend. They can also get this needlepoint snowflake trivet collection, not $30, but $15, 50% off through Sunday. That way you can create these beautiful needlework designs. We even show you how to create a trivet with it. Full materials list is in there, as well as how to complete it with the binding and everything. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and zoom in on that.
That was originally released January 2020.
And Lauren was just informing me, this was originally released in January of 2020. You can see there. Now, you might be wondering how we get those beautiful, but it's really just a very thick bean stitch to connect all these points, creating a bolder look of thread when we're only using a 40 weight. So it's a really fun collection, and of course, trivets are useful. So why not decorate your table with this collection? And also one of our longest running machine operators, Stefano, came up with the idea of this can not only be garland, because this is one of the other designs from the garland section, is this poinsettia, but you can also take it and use these loops to wrap around napkins. So you can make napkin rings out of them as well, which is, sometimes we create items for one use and yourselves or our team members will find many uses for them. I'd love to see your use for this if it's not for garland. All right, it's still going. So to tell you a little bit more about Holiday Extravaganza, this was, again, originally a very large collection of Premium Plus, which it still is on the website. But this was reconfigured, the one that we're doing, the workshop curriculum, to be a little bit smaller, and was created originally for dealers to host workshops at their actual stores. Lost the word for stores there. And that way, you can go into their store and stitch this out with them. But, of course, we also release it as a retail item for you as well. Now, I'll get back to what I was saying in a moment, because we're on the next step here. So I just finished step 4, and we're moving on to step 5, which, as you're reading through these number steps underneath your actual little guy up here. On page 16 is the page I'm going off of, which I didn't inform you of before. But page 16 and the gingerbread man is the design we're doing. As you're going through and reading these steps, a good habit, especially if you're new, is to go back and reread the step you just completed before you move on to the next. That way, if it's telling you to do something additional before you proceed, but after the embroidery step, you don't forget about it. Typically, you won't forget on runs that are, a little bit shorter, like if it's just a 1-minute embroidery run, but sometimes there might be a 20, 30-minute embroidery run where it's just stitching for a long time, and you might forget that you were supposed to put a fabric down before the next step. So when you see that you're on step 4, I would go back and reread step 3 before moving on to step 4. So right now we're threading the next thread, which you can use the colors we put in there if you want. That's just to make it look exactly like ours, but you're all going to have different tastes. You want to create a variety of looks for your garland, perhaps. So anything you pick would be perfectly fine. Now, a tip on picking threads and fabrics, and the way we do it at Anita is we don't go out and take our thread rack to our fabric shop and then try to match fabrics to our threads. Meaning you wouldn't go into a fabric shop with threads that you basically have and then walk up and down aisles of fabric trying to find things that coordinate. First thing you do is you go in and you find fabrics that you love, and then you take it to a thread rack, because the threads are set in stone, meaning that black thread color for one brand is always going to be that black thread color. Whereas when you go pick a bolt of fabric, it could be there one day and gone the next. So I always recommend picking your fabrics first, then going to a smaller thread rack where everything's right there and you can easily coordinate all your colors. But as it's running step 4, let me go ahead and rethread this real quick. Or as I'm fixing machine for step 4, what I was saying about Holiday Extravaganza was that I originally helped do this collection and wrote a lot of the tutorial back 2015 maybe, a long time ago. And the projects in there, when we create something that's a really big release, we don't just typically do one thing unless it's a giant tapestry. A lot of times with large releases, we'll create a lot of different fun projects that all have coordinating artwork in it, meaning all the projects are going to have the same style of drawing, color coordination that we do in them, which makes it a lot of fun, because then when you get a collection like this, you can make several things that all coordinate to decorate for the holiday or just to make gifts for people in general. All right, now we're back on track. I must have not threaded it properly the first time. All right, let me double check here, see what else we got going on. Okay, so with this guy, we do have some batting prepped, because as you go down the number steps while it's finishing up this one, I can kind of see that further down the line when we get to it, on step 7 in here, it's going to tell us, tack down stitch for the back fabric, which we'll get to in a few. If using batting, add with this step. You don't have to add the batting. It's just that when something's just 2 pieces of fabric and some embroidery and it's hanging, it might be a little bit floppy. So this batting will help give it extra body. You can also feel free to add some to the front too, which they did with this one, which will kind of give it more of a quilted look as well. Okay, step 4 is finished. So now going back and rereading step 4, I can see there's nothing else I need to do before step 5. So I'm just going to change the color on here. So his buttons are different colors, but you technically don't have to change the color if you want. You can literally do all the embroidery runs as the same color. Again, that is your preference. Get this guy in here. All right. Lauren, what say we do another prize here?
Let's do it.
All right, again, running step 5, which is the button and bow tie here. Okay, so another prize time, another $20 gift card will be given to the lucky winner, which we'll pick momentarily. All you have to do is type in poinsettia I wouldn't win the prize because I don't even know if I could spell it properly. Which when I did write tutorials for Need a Good Design, our creative director always had a great time going back and doing her best to edit all my stuff. I make stuff good on paper, you make words good, is kind of how I type. All right. So as it's finishing up this step, and while we're waiting for a prize winner to be picked for typing in Garland in the comments below, which actually I'll get to in a moment because it just finished this. So before I say what I was going to say, we're going to go ahead and move on to step 6, which is just another button. I reread step 5, still nothing else I need to do. So for this button, maybe I'll use some white. Just keep them contrasting here. But again, that's your preference, whichever you like to do. All right. Lauren, how are we doing on a winner for that prize?
Good. It is Elizabeth Bullington.
Elizabeth Bullington, you are the winner. Congratulations. Again, just email us at customerexperience@anita-gooddesign.com. Let us know you were the winner of a $20 digital gift card to be used on our online store for any digital product, including the flash sale, which, by the way, when we send you an actual gift card as for a prize or with our club membership, if you do the one that comes with the $1,400 gift card, you can use them for things that are on sale as well. So you could actually get this needlepoint snowflake trivets essentially for free and still have $5 left to spend on something else. All right. We've completed step 6, so now we're going to go ahead and it's telling me right here in step 7 under the number steps, tack down stitch for back fabric. If using batting, add with this step. Now, if you're not sure what that means, this is why I say, especially for newer, use the picture steps with this. I can go on over to the picture steps, and I can see that what we just did with all those embroidery steps was step E with the embroidery. Step F is telling us in the picture steps, once the embroidery is done, take the hoop out of the machine and flip it over, as you can see in the picture. And then step G is telling us to put our back fabric on. I'm going to go ahead and add batting with it, so I can take my batting and my back fabric. If you're pre-prepping this, you can cut them both at the same time. Make sure that I completely cover my little guy here, and I'll show you how I'm taping it. I'll hold it up and show you in just a moment once I get this guy secured. But you got to remember, when you're taping something to the back of the hoop, and this is very important, any home machines, this doesn't necessarily affect most multi-needles, or excuse me, multi-needles, unless, of course, the multi-needle has a bed on it. But all home machines do have a bed on the machine, which means the back of the hoop is going to be rubbing on that bed. So when you go and tape this stuff down, one, using embroidery tape is going to be your best bet for tape. If your needle runs through it, it's not going to gum up the needle as much as, say, like painter's tape would. And also, taping it nice and secure on the corners on the back, which again, I'll show you how I'm doing it. Taping it nice and secure on the corners is going to prevent it from pulling as it's rubbing on the bed of the machine. And sometimes when it pulls, it can actually fold it and stitch it all wonky, which we don't want. So I like taping the corners because that's usually what grabs. And I like making sure that none of my tape is lipped up because that will also grab. And anytime I'm giving you a tip on something to look out for, it's because I've made that mistake plenty of times. So I follow the picture steps. In the picture steps, you can see it taped it on the sides. Again, I recommend taping those corners because that's usually what's going to actually grab. But we've gone through the picture steps, and now we're actually going to run step 7. So you'll notice that step 7 there Go and drop that down. Step 7 told you tack down stitch for back fabric, but nowhere did it say to place it until after it's telling you tack down stitch. So this is where, again, if you're new, refer to those picture steps. Use both of these at the same time. I can never say that enough, because it's one of the biggest ways I see people make mistakes in class. I made those mistakes all the time because I would partially read a direction or not go back and reread something and just assume I knew what to do, and that's what I get for assuming. It's essentially mess up and learn from my own mistakes. For batting that we use just about 3 main types here at Anita. No real preference, but we use warm and white, warm and natural. And bamboo batting is a fan favorite. I know that from just going out and doing events. So feel free to check those out and let us know what your favorite is in the comments. One of the best things about these comments here on YouTube is that you get to share with other people and get ideas from everyone, not just us at Anita. So before I've just pulled this hoop out, and I'll notice here that step 7, okay, I added all that stuff. I ran step 7. Now it's telling me to do step 8, but this is why, again, we use our picture steps with it. I'll notice before I run step 8, which is a satin stitch, I should be doing something that is not in the number steps because it's showing me my picture steps. Now why is that? Picture steps are generally things you're doing with your hands, and they're teaching you the technique of how we do something, which in this case is freestanding. Number steps are walking you through the machine sequences for each step. So again, number steps are what your machine's doing. Picture steps is kind of a combination, but mostly stuff you're doing with your hands. So now I can look and I can see that picture I is where we would run that tack down stitch. And then I can see that it's telling me in J to trim all that excess fabric from the back and from the front. So J and K are walking you through that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this fabric all the way around. And just as a reminder for anybody who's joined after last time I said it, welcome to YouTube, because it's a little newer to us doing the live events directly from here. But from YouTube, which we've completely reorganized, and I've been showing this at classes too, you'll find a wealth of knowledge and content that is free and at your disposal. Everything from how to sew quilt blocks together to how to do this garland. You're going to see these classes are going to be on there forever, so you can always come back and do these. You don't have to actually buy this product until you even watch the class to do it. So maybe you watch this and then you're like, oh, I'd like this. Which, if you do like this and you think your friends will like this, make sure you tell them, because again, this holiday extravaganza is on a huge sale right now. The workshop curriculum, which they have pinned below, is on sale for $34.95, originally $99, until the end of the month. So go get it while you can. The end of October if you're watching this at a later date. October 2021 if it's a really later date. All right. Going through and trimming this guy. As you are trimming, when it's a standard type of applique, which is what we just did here, was essentially just do applique the Anita way, where we do that placement stitch, we put our fabric down right side up, we tacked it, we've run our embroidery, we made it freestanding because, one, we did it on a type of stabilizer that we can tear away or wash away depending on what you're using. But it's also standard because we're going to be finishing it with a satin stitch. So standard applique is generally a satin stitch finish. So when I'm trimming my fabric, I want to get as close to that tack down stitch as possible, which is why I mentioned the double curve applique scissors, or just curved tip if you prefer. And the reason you want to get as close as possible is because the finish stitch on here, you don't want that fabric sticking out past it. Your design will somewhat be usable, but you'll notice if you don't trim the fabric before this last step, these holes are going to have fabric in them. We don't want that. We want it to only be our water soluble or our tearaway, so we have a nice clean hole and we don't have to sit there with like an X-Acto knife and try to cut that hole out at a later date. So always make sure that as you're doing these projects, you're going through, and I know I say it too much, but use both the picture steps and the number steps at the same time. I get this question a lot in class when I teach in person, but how do we actually know what to do at a Need a Good design when we write the tutorials? Because we don't have instructions for any of this stuff. Well, we don't really need instructions when we work here at a Need a Good design, because we only have a certain number of fundamental techniques. Meaning the techniques we use with this, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's just standard embroidery, which is literally just threading your machine, press and go while following the number steps. We did applique, which is used in most everything we do. And we're doing freestanding. Now, if I know those three things, which are very easy to do, then I don't need directions for this, because there's certain rules that apply, such as when to and when not to trim my actual fabric, as I mentioned earlier. So what we do at a Need a Good design is when our digitizers actually finish digitizing any single design, we do what's called a first run. So it'll come out to the creative floor. You know, that's where we'll pick all the colors and everything else. But they'll print off paperwork from digitizing software, which has a bunch of picture windows of each sequence. For those of you who don't know, a sequence, when I say that word, literally just means a step, meaning we put a stop in there, so to speak. So each sequence has its own printed window with the actual picture of that digitized sequence only. So the tack down stitch would have a picture window with only showing a line for a tack down stitch. So we get really good at just reading those picture windows and knowing exactly what it's doing, which if you've been doing this long enough, a lot of the newer machines have those preview windows of the sequence separate from the actual design itself. So oftentimes, when I worked in the creative department, I would just literally load my design. I wouldn't even have to really know much about it other than, hey, you know, what am I doing here? Is it, you know, freestanding, or what are the fundamental techniques? And I would just look at the actual preview window. Yes, Lauren?
Can you just take a minute and show them what you're cutting?
Absolutely. So what I've trimmed here is the front all the way to the tack down stitch. Let me hold it up right here for you. Get in, see if we can get this camera angle a bit better. So I just finished trimming the front of the gingerbread man down to that tack down stitch, as I showed you. I also trimmed the back all the way down to the tack down stitch as well. Now, for those of you doing this with me or watching later on, remember on the back side we put our batting and fabric down at the same time. Me, I trimmed them both at the same time, but just from doing this in class, I know that a lot of people prefer maybe just holding up their fabric first and cutting that and then going back and cutting the batting. Might make it a bit easier. And then once I trimmed it, I'm just going back and I'm kind of cleaning up any little stragglers that aren't quite as close as I would like it to be, because I don't want any of this sticking out past my actual satin stitch. Again, it's only going to cause harm to your design if it's in the loops, but it also doesn't look great when it's sticking out, so for aesthetic purposes. So now that we're all trimmed up, we're ready to do the actual last step, which I can see here, my picture steps. We're basically just finished picture step L, and we just are ready to move on to number step 8. Now, following the picture steps, which, again, this is why I recommend always doing both, is because I'm talking while I do this. Oh, here it is. So following the picture steps, you'll notice in there that M is telling you, be sure to wind your bobbin to match the top thread to run the satin stitch. Now, it says be sure to. Is it going to hurt anything if you don't? No, it's just that if your top satin stitch isn't white, then the back side isn't going to match. So if I were to run this silver metallic thread on top, but I didn't pre-wind my bobbin to match, then the back side would be a different color. And of course, this is freestanding, and we want it to look pretty from both sides. So it's an aesthetic reason. So I knew my final stitch was going to be red, so I pre-wound my bobbin to that color. That way they both match on both sides, and it just looks nicer. All right. Get that pre-wound bobbin in there. Go ahead and put my guy back in here, and I'll change that top thread. before we run the final step here. Also to note, as you're going through the picture steps, take your time when you're new, because you'll notice in certain steps, which kind of applies to, like if we back up some picture steps, step D had a note in there that was basically telling you we're using darker thread. There could be different kind of things that we identify, or caution, look out for this, or tips and tricks, etc. So I really recommend walking through all those picture steps and reading the entire thing. Again, that was one of my worst habits, was when I got hired and needed good design. I had no idea about this industry at all. Had never seen these machines. All I knew is that when I had a hole in my jeans, Mom would take it and then come back out of a room and it was magically fixed. That's all I knew about embroidery, quilting, anything like that. All right. I'll get back to that in a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and start step 8 for the satin stitch and loops. Pre-wound my bobbin, did my top thread to match. But yeah, I didn't know anything about this, so when I started, I was basically given, when I started, not any special instruction manual, but I was given the tutorial from our event classes back in 2014 when I started, which was Anita's sampler. And so I was given literally the same thing you use at events to learn how to actually do our pre-digitized embroidered designs. And I went through and stitched everything out. And I found immediately, which was really good that they have us educators do this and learn from it, is I found out that, yeah, I'm pretty bad at reading directions. So I had to train myself to read the entire thing all the way through, look for every single tip and trick until I really got a grasp on those fundamental techniques that I was talking about, which again is everything. We have about 16 or so. I know we've added a couple here or there, but in all reality, there's really only 5 things you need to know to do almost anything we've created, which is standard embroidery, again, just changing your thread, following the steps, applique, folded fabric, you have freestanding, and quilt blocks. So if you just know those 5 things, literally you can do just about anything that we actually make. After that, it's really understanding how to sew, which I don't do. I can digitize, I can run machines all day long, multiple machines, but at the end of the day, I collect all my stuff and hand it to our seamstresses, which they are phenomenal and do a great job for us. But if you aren't familiar with sewing and you're just an embroiderer, we have tons of stuff out there. So I can always tell at events who my embroiderers are from my quilters, because my quilters are very neat and very, very organized. And they always come in and like to look on the back of our quilts to see how we actually do stuff. But my embroiderers come in, and I can tell they are immediately, because literally they're covered in embroidery. It could be a bunch of random stuff. It could be tons of lace work they put on their clothes, etc. But if you're just an embroiderer, we have tons of designs out there. Feel free to check them out on our website, anitagoodesign.com, which once again is where you can get this Holiday Extravaganza Workshop, which this is the actual, let me show the pack cover on this camera if that's okay. Just so you know, which we have the link posted below, but you can see it, that little box there down in the corner, that's the salmon color box. It says Embroidery Workshop Curriculum. So for the sale we're doing for this class, the Embroidery Workshop Curriculum is the one that is on sale, not the Premium Plus. This is again typically $99, marked all the way down to $34.95 for you through the end of the month. To come back and watch this video. The video will always be here. This will be on the website for you to purchase, even at regular price, past this date. So feel free to get that. And again, as it's finishing up, one last reminder on that flash sale for the needlepoint snowflake trivets on our website. We also have that posted below. And to reiterate about our YouTube, please make sure that you give a like, press that thumbs up button, comment. If you haven't, hit the subscription button, then make sure you do that now. And then when you see that notification bell pop up, when you click that, if you're subscribed to YouTube, which is free, then you will get notifications sent to your email, or if you put your phone number in there, however you want. Anytime we go live, we post a new video, you'll always be up to date on all of our content here on our YouTube channel. which as a lot of you can see is literally growing by the day. We're doing a lot more, not only virtual classes like this, but just instructional videos, which a lot of our team has been putting in a lot of hard work to make for you, because our education here, for the most part, is free. We love giving you free education because we know that once you really get a grasp on our fundamental techniques, you are going to have a whole new world opened up for you. You're going to want to go out and get just about everything because you've gained that confidence to do anything in our library. Again, those 5 things I listed earlier, between the applique, folded fabric, freestanding, quilt block, just learning those 5 out of our 16 or so fundamental techniques will really help you do just about anything. And it's very simple. We design all of our designs to be as simple for even a brand new comer to this entire thing, like I was, to do. But the designs are digitized so beautifully that you're going to absolutely love them when they're completed. And so again, check those fundamental techniques out. And as this is finishing up, we're going to do one last prize for a $20 digital gift card to the person that types in extravaganza in the comments below. And we'll send another digital $20 gift card to that winner who types extravaganza. We'll pick that name here in just a moment. So as that's finishing up, just to show you once again some of the other things that's in this workshop, for those of you who joined later, we have these 3D poinsettia zipper bags, which are a lot of fun to do. It also comes with a variety of different ornaments, everything from the 3D ones that we do in 2 different hoopings to make the 3D parts and combine them to a freestanding angel. We have lace work that we do on water soluble, about as easy as it gets. These make great gifts because you can just stitch them out on water soluble all day long by pressing one button and you just essentially wrap it around a tree ball. What are those ornaments called? The round, I don't know why I'm losing words. Round ornament? Just a round ornament? There you go. Lauren's looking at me weird. We also have in there, of course, our gift card holders. These are fantastic gifts. For those of you who, like my mother, want to personalize things for people and not just go out and just buy stuff and give it to them, but you love putting that personal touch to really show you care, stitching out an actual gift card holder. These are also essentially using a freestanding technique. So when I showed you this garland, you learned the technique to also make this. It's the same technique, it's just a different shape design. So those make great gifts. We also have in there these stocking gift card holders. So just different kinds, and again, these are all a lot of fun to do. I know you're going to love them. Some of these require some sewing, of course, like the tissue box covers, these guys. Others are just one and done. Others are a couple hoopings that you put together, but our tutorials are going to walk you through that all the same way I just did here on this live event, using those picture steps and the number steps. Lauren, we got a winner.
Sharon Blakemore.
Sharon Blakemore, you are the winner of our next $20 gift card that we'll send to you. Just email us at customerexperience@anita-gooddesign.com and we'll get that on over to you. All right. So to wrap this all up, as it's rounding about on this last step here, when we make this garland, of course you can go through and see the different designs in there, but you can create several. Again, you can bring a bunch into one hooping if you like. Just make sure you don't color sort it if your machine has that option. It will throw off the sequence of things. But then you can kind of stagger them. You can make your own personalized ones. As Lauren told me, Stefano suggested, you can use them as napkin ring, oops, it's backside, napkin ring holders as well. A lot of fun things to do with these. And of course, with some of the other designs that are in that actual tutorial, such as the freestanding lace, you don't actually have to use this as an ornament. You can actually stitch a bunch of these out, tack them together on your sewing machine and use it as a placemat or centerpieces.
Red one stitched out?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, thank you. So this is the actual design that's stitched out. And we did it on water soluble, of course, and but this is what it looks like at the end. So you can do a bunch of these, tack them together. You can make, I don't know, maybe a, what are those mobiles called? Yeah, mobile. And tack a bunch of gingerbread men to them. Maybe make a little mobile for a child in your life, a restless husband, a puppy. Up to you. All right, so that finishes up the last step to complete this guy. At that point in time, if it's on water soluble, you want to make sure to trim as close as you can all the way around. You don't want to take a whole hooping of water soluble over to your sink to wash away, but tear away, you can just punch them on out of the hoop. You can do it differently than I just did if you want, but when I used to run 4 to 6 machines at the same time, you get a little impatient. And then with tear away, with all these fibers sticking around the edge, I just take a candle, a lighter, whatever, run it quickly around the outside, and they'll all shrink up. And then if there's anything left with tear away, you can just color it in with a black magic marker, or magic marker that matches, rather. Other than that, thank you for watching this live stitch out with Anita Good Design. Once again, this is Bryan. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell down below, as well as click on the links to get these things on special while they last. Thank you again for